5.2 SAT questions, which are around the role of open market operations. Now, it's been a while since we had a question on this in an exam, but we did get a multiple choice question last year in the economics exam. So the question is a contractionary stance in monetary policy. And I actually want you to break down this question before you even look at A, B, C, D answers. So one of the strategies we can use for answering a multiple choice question is we just visualize and we try and work out the answer before we pick the correct response. So a contractionary stance in monetary policy, straight away I should be thinking, or you should be thinking, that if it's contractionary stance, the interest rate must be, or the cash rate must be increased. Okay, so a contractionary stance, cash rate increased by the RBA could be achieved by. So it's asking us how would the RBA achieve an increase in the cash rate. Now, remember, if you want to increase the cash rate, you need to decrease the supply of cash or shift the supply curve to the left. And the tricky part is how do we decrease the supply of cash? Well, we need to pull money out of the overnight money market. And the only way that we can do that is by selling bonds. Okay? So now that I've got that clear in my head, I'm going to approach the response that I think is best. So I'm only going to look at A and C because I know that the only way they could increase the cash rate is by selling bonds. Okay. Now A says selling Commonwealth securities to increase cash in the overnight money market. Now this is a confusing part, and this is, I think, where most students went wrong on last year's exam. It says increase the cash, not the cash rate, but increase cash or supply of money or liquidity in the overnight money market. Now, if you want to increase the cash rate or take a contractionary stance, then you actually want to decrease the supply of cash. So A cannot be right, which leads us straight into C, which is in fact the correct answer. Now remember, I think about 50% of people kids got this question wrong on 2019's exam. So that's your chance to really get a point of difference. But it is a tricky question. Okay, this is really just a question to help you understand the process of changing interest rates or maintaining interest rates. Again, it depends on how you approach it, whether you want to use the textbook method or the corridor RBA method. I just did a video on that before to clarify. But it says explain how the RBA would have decreased interest rates like they did in March 2020. And I've got some sort of bookmarks here for you to be thinking about. You want to be talking about overnight money markets, cash rates, retail banks, ESAs, bonds, and liquidity. Now, I've used the textbook response here, but you could talk about interest rate corridors if you wish. So the textbook response is the RBA meets monthly and they make a decision about interest rates. They announce that to the market. It's a really important day for financial markets. They've said we're going to cut interest rates to 25 basis points, which is a highly expansionary stance. It's exactly what happened in March. They had an extraordinary meeting to do this. Then they enter the overnight money market where banks clear. It says clear to zero. I think I did this in class. They don't have to clear to zero, actually. To clear their ESA, and again, I've done that same mistake, their ES accounts, they either borrow the deficit or they lend their surpluses to the market. In order to increase the supply of cash for your third mark, in this market, the RBA must buy government bonds from retail banks. Okay, so we've really started to hit all the key points up the top here. So one for the meeting, one for some mention of ESAs, one for a mention of how it increases the supply of cash, which is via purchasing of bonds. And the most important part in my mind is that you then need to explain how this gets passed on to consumers who borrow money from the banks like the Commonwealth Bank. All right, so pretty straightforward there. Please feel free to mark your own work and submit it to me on the Google Classroom. Bye for now.